Hello, everyone. I know that I told you on Aunt Lainey's Kitchen I would be going live, and I am going live, that I'd be cooking, but I'm also going to be recording my Aunt Lainey's Kitchen podcast. And I apologize if my voice gets a little rusty because, dealing with weather changing, all that stuff. So just bear with me a little bit. So here we go. I'm going to start it because what I do, my process is that I record this on Zoom as well. Not the video, but I, use the video from TikTok for my YouTube. So that's what's going on. If you see me with my drive-through headset, would you like an extra chalupa with that? That is what's going on. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to go ahead and hit record. Hello and welcome to Aunt Lainey's Kitchen. We are on season 1, episode 21, and today I'm going to be doing some food reviews. From the past couple of months, I got a little backed up. This is a food review for January and February. So I started off my January actually at this really cute place, and it's in Overland Park, and it is called, I just want to make sure I'm getting it, Antiojitos Del Peru. So it's actually a pretty good restaurant, and I went there last month, and it was actually pretty good, as I said. And I met a friend there, and she has her own, she's kind of like, does it in her spare time. She's kind of like a food and quaint and cozy kind of creator here in the Kansas City area. And she actually turned me on to this place because I'm in the Northland. She's in the Southland, and I always tell her, listen, I will drive to you because I don't always have the opportunity to check out things in Johnson County in Kansas City. I used to live in Johnson County back in the day. I was in Mission and Overland Park. This place is in Overland Park. It's like old Overland Park. And so, it's like 40-minute drive for me. But again, I will drive for food, okay? I've been known to drive up to 90 minutes for some good food. She promised me the food would be good. She did not lie. So now this food is like primarily from Peru, South America. I had a lomo saltado, and it had marinated beef, tomatoes, onions, and soy sauce. And then they served the fries on the side. And if you go to my AuntLainey'sKitchen.com, I posted this January 18th. So I'm kind of like, going over the old ones if you're just joining the live chat here. And so what they did was they served this on the side, and then they kind of served it on top of the fries. And then the rice was on the side of it. Now, at first I was a little like, man, I don't like when people serve meat over my fries because, the fries get soggy. But because the meat was marinated properly, I didn't mind it. Like, I felt like the marination hitting the fries was not a disappointment. And then sometimes I think what happens is if you have something that like the meat is kind of meh, then when it's on top of your potatoes or your fries, you're like not happy about it because you're like, this is, the potatoes have their own special place in my heart. Like, you can't mix them. But this actually worked because you had all the marinated ingredients. That's my day job. And the smooth texture of the fries, because these were steak fries. So they had enough to kind of like, they didn't get as soggy as they would have gotten if they were like shoestring fries. And then the onions kind of added a nice texture, and the tomatoes had like a nice soft texture, but it didn't like, it wasn't too much. Now, again, I like good flavors. So if my texture is a little off, but the flavor is good, I'm okay with that. But I do actually, appreciate kind of the fact that, it didn't get too soggy. Like it was, there was kind of like, the marination there, but it wasn't to the point where I was like, I can't eat this. But if you have texture issues, that might be a thing. So you might have to request, hey, can you serve these fries on a separate plate? If you've got a texture thing going on and you don't want your food to touch, no judgment there, but that's just kind of a way to still get to enjoy the amazing meal. And the vibe in the restaurant, I loved it. Like, it's in a strip mall with other kind of restaurants around. And the reason why I love strip mall restaurants, they're so underrated. They definitely need our support, especially in this economy. But you felt like you were in your own little world. Like, I felt like I've never been to South America, but I felt like I was in a slice of South America where, I was kind of like the way our table was, the way the decor, it felt like I was on vacation, and I was, we were there for about 90 minutes and you were chatting and catching up, but it felt like I was actually on vacation. Now, there's another place in the Kansas City area. It's in the Northland. It's called Los Hornos. It has the same vibe. I believe Their food is from, it's not Peru. There's another, maybe I don't know if it's Chilean, but it's a South American cuisine, and really good. I definitely recommend that place as well. But it's the same, it's the vibe. A lot of times for me, I love having good food. I'll eat good food in the shack, but I also appreciate when good food is served and there's a vibe that makes me feel like I'm on vacation, that I'm actually like out of my element, and especially on a Friday night, perfect time, or a great place, you know, for a weekend lunch, just to get out of your element and feel like you're on vacation. I really believe in vacationing in your own city. And that is a glimpse in the Kansas City area. So definitely check that out. Check out both places, because I have in the past already reviewed Los Hornos, but this is the place I'm reviewing today is Antiojitos del Peru. So that's a really good place to try. And I thought that the prices were reasonable. And the dinner that I described was a lomo saltado. Really great vibes there. Really great date night place. Now, if you're not in the Kansas City area, I definitely recommend you seek out these restaurants, these ethnic restaurants that take you out of your elements, right? And give you a nice vibe. And it's also good to support local businesses, but it gives you like a nice vibe and you feel more relaxed. Even though I had a 40-minute drive and it was cold, a 40-minute drive ahead of me, I was so relaxed and so just like, whew, I really needed that. And so that's my review of that restaurant. So now we're going to move on. And that was January. So now we're moving on to another restaurant. So then, of course, you know, we had restaurant week here in Kansas City. And so I will tell you that one of the places that I really kind of appreciated where I went for restaurant week, I'm going to stop right here. I'm going to move on to another restaurant before I get to that. So where I went, this next place was Palacio Maya Mexican, a Mexicano restaurant, but they, you know, they go by, you know, people that were like, hey, do you want to go to the Palacio? But I grew up speaking Spanish. Sometimes my pronunciation is a little whack because I don't practice as much as I should be 35 years later after learning it. But it is Palacio Maya Mexican restaurant, and it's in the Northland. And so what I got there was a quesadilla fajito with steak. And the reason why I like their version of it is because it's hearty without stuffing you to the like where you're like, oh my gosh, I can't move. And they also, what they do is they give it to you and they don't cut it up. Now I'm sure they'll cut it up if you want them to, but I kind of like, and again, you can go to my AuntLainey'skitchen.com, February 1st is when I reviewed it, but it was from January. And I like that because I wanted to cut into it myself. Now again, I'm fine with the quesadilla triangles. I do that at my own house just because it's easier, but I kind of, because it was like a quesadilla platter. So then it was also served with seasoned rice. And then it had like the pico de gallo, which I know some people will put it inside, but I actually like to mix it in with the rice. That's, you know, and the ingredients were fresh. They didn't taste frozen or freeze dried. They were fresh. Now the actual fajita, it was packed with peppers. So there was like peppers and there were like some green peppers in there. It wasn't spicy or anything like that. But, and then it had a couple other things in there. I think there was some cheese in there as well, obviously. And I think there's some onions in there. It was really good. And I liked how the tortilla that they served it with was like, they had a crisp on it. It wasn't like one of those things where it's like the tortilla has not been crisped properly. So, and again, the food is still good. I'm still going to eat it, but I felt like it was a maximum experience for me. And again, now the vibe there, very colorful. And again, I felt like I have been to Mexico. I felt like I was in Mexico. The music was piped in. It was, you could hear it, but it wasn't so loud where you couldn't talk. And then it just felt like you were in somebody's kitchen, in somebody's house, brightly colored things. It was like a slice of, and again, I went there for lunch. It was kind of like a nice slice of vacation time. And then, you know, of course I went back to my real life and it was in a strip mall because my theory is some of the best restaurants are in strip malls. So I think it's great for like a cozy date night, a lunch outing with friends, or even like solo. They're very friendly to solo diners as well. I like to eat solo. I mean, I had a lunch companion this time, but I like to eat solo because it's easier for me to kind of make an assessment of the food. And I don't feel like I've got somebody, you know, with me going, okay, girl, are we going to chat about stuff? Or are you going to be writing down notes about this food? So again, that's just my preference, is to do it that way. But I've also had really good reviews when I was, with other people as well. It just depends on if they're food people and if they're really kind of into this kind of like lifestyle of reviewing things and really being into food. That's kind of like what it depends on. So definitely would recommend that place. Now, so for my restaurant week thing, now again, it's a little different because so when I was supposed to go to restaurant week, a couple things happened. So I was like, dang it. But so what I did instead is I went to Jasper's restaurant. Now they technically don't participate in restaurant week as usual. They just they just do something for the month of January. So I went there because I'd never been there before, and I listened to Chef Jasper's show. I think they have a podcast on Spotify, but I think they do record it live on one of the local stations. I do not know, unfortunately, which one it is, but you can definitely find it on Spotify and Apple and all that stuff. And he's on Facebook as well. So I went there, and because I knew it, I'd heard really great things. And it is kind of a neighborhood restaurant that's in a strip mall. Again, my theory. So I went there for the first time, and they were offering like a 4-course price fixed menu. And so what I opted for was like, there's a lobster bisque and a cappuccino. Now it was like literally served in a cup, and it had elements of like the, traditional lobster bisque. But then they had like the cream sherry and white foam added. So it looked like, and again, this is on my Aunt Lainey's kitchen. I posted this February 16th. It looked like, when you look at it, it looked like a cappuccino. Now, I was a little skeptical, I'll be honest. I was like, listen, I love creativity with food, but like I needed some comfort because it was kind of like a rainier night. I was like, I just want some comfort from my lobster bisque. Well, it actually was pretty good, and it had a light taste. So I'm used to like a lobster bisque because I lived in New England for a couple of years. I'm used to a lobster bisque that has a little bit more heft to it, but this was light. And because I was doing like the full-on 4-course menu, it was important that they start off light. So I do appreciate that, because if it would have been one of those hearty lobster bisques, I might have had problems like eating the rest of the food. Now, I do want to give a shout out to the bread and butter plate. Okay. They had a nice crusty bread, and and they brought it out before the lobster bisque, but it was a nice crusty bread. Cause sometimes those bread plates are kind of sad looking. I mean, look, I'm going to eat it anyway though, but sometimes they're, but this was a nice hunk of crusty bread. And that I was like, okay, that brought the comfort that the lobster bisque did not necessarily give me. So that kind of made up for, the lobster bisque, being more of like again, it tasted good, but it wasn't like a comfort soup for me. Now, the next one was the tossed Italian salad. It was like a mixed greens situation with Italian dressing and tomato and cucumber. And then they just put like one like fresh pepperoni on there. Now, here's the thing about this. Now, I said it was a little controversial because usually, and it was seasoned, the greens were seasoned. But like usually when you get like a salad like this, there's other ingredients in it. Like, it was one slice of tomato, one slice of pepperoni with the seasoned greens. Usually it's like loaded down with cheese, and you get a couple of the pepperonis in there, and then they've got maybe more of a grape tomato or cherry tomato situation, or they've got chopped tomatoes and not this. But I'm actually going to defend this. And I'm going to say, because it is a 4-course situation, it kind of like, again, and I ate it and it was good, but I understand kind of like, the concept behind it, because it's like, I've already had the huge hunk of bread. Well, they gave you a couple things of bread. I already had the lobster bisque. And so I still had like two more things going on. And so what I did, because I knew that when you do those long reviews in 2025, people do not have the attention span to read this long review, especially on the phone. It just scrolls and you just don't go. You're like, I'm scrolling forever. So I broke this up into lobster bisque, the lobster bisque in cappuccino, and tossed Italian salad. That's where I reviewed them. And then I posted in a separate post, I posted about the main course, which is a pasta and Tuscan pork ragu, and then the chocolate tartufo that I had. So let's start with the main course. the pasta and Tuscan pork ragu. I'm like, I don't know. It's like my Italian is slipping. So that had like tender meat and it had like a flavorful sauce and rigatoni. And it's funny because I asked the server, I'm like, hey, are there going to be like rigatoni noodles? And he went and checked and he's like, yes. And so the reason why I said that is because it's something I've noticed, and I am not a chef. I do cook, but I'm not a chef. But I noticed that when you're doing those meats and they're going to be more of a ground situation, it's easier for the rigatoni to like, okay, let me get this ground pork, and it's easier to kind of spear it with the rigatoni versus when they do that kind of stuff with like an angel hair pasta or spaghetti or even a fettuccine, you got to twirl that fork. I could spear it, right? I was like, spear the fork. Okay. Or spear the food. So that's what I did. I was spearing it. It was really good. Now, it doesn't come with cheese. You have to ask for like the cheese to be like the Parmesan to put on there. So I did do that, but I didn't want to overload it because I still wanted to be able to taste it. And it was actually pretty good. I took a bite before I had him add the cheese on. But then I'm like, and it was good, but I'm like, this cheese is going to add a saltier layer to it and more texture. So I went with that Parmesan cheese. It was really good. Definitely recommend that. So then after that, finally, we get to the chocolate tartufo. Now, this has a mixture of textures and flavors. So it starts off with like with a chocolate sauce over a crunchy texture. And then, you know, you bite into, you're like, okay, well, this is chocolate, this is tartufo, okay. But then you bite into it and it's kind of like a cookies and cream vanilla center. So I was like trying, and then they had like a little, you know, berry on it, but I was trying not to like shovel that in my mouth. I was like, okay, and you know, savor it, but it was really good. And if I didn't have something after, because I had a couple other things to do after my dinner there, I would have like gotten a to-go box. And I would have ordered a separate one and taken it to go. But it was pretty good, and it was pretty reasonably priced. I think it was about $40 for all this food, and it was a lot of food. I thought I definitely got my money's worth. I love Jasper's. Jasper's is the place that you can go, you know, like dine by yourself, because originally, like, I'm like, when I dine by myself, I'll always say, hey, I can just take a bar table. They're like, no, you can get a table. And I was like, okay. So they put me in a table in a nice spot, and I had a nice view of outside. There's like a rushing creek outside. So I had a nice view of that. So that was nice. And then also it's a great place for a date. I'm sure people get proposed there all the time. And then it's also a nice place to celebrate wins, or maybe even like a comfort place, but it's definitely a neighborhood kind of restaurant. And it was packed. And I feel like it's packed all the time because it just got that vibe. It's like comfort in a restaurant, like, you know, and so I definitely will be going back. Now it's a little like it's south of me, but still I think it's definitely worth going to, and you know, having a nice dinner there. I can't wait till the summertime. I think they have a patio as well. So I'm definitely going to be trying to go out there for the summertime. Now, one I have not written about is Granite City. Okay, so I had never been to, and I want to make sure I'm getting the name right because I did not write a review. Granite City Food and Brewing Company. It's like, you know, brewery. I think it's Granite City Food and Brewery. Sorry about that. It's like on Google's like brewing company. I'm like, wait, is that part of it? So it's a lovely place. And I went to the one, there's a couple of locations where I live, but I went to the one in the Northland, and I went for, you know, a couple of birthday celebrations. So today I did the brunch, and it was really good. Like, you get a lot of food, and it was like, I think $30 or something like that. You actually do get a lot of food, and they give you a nice variety. They've got prime rib. They've got like the omelet situation. You can even make yourself a little sandwich. They've got salads and macaroni and cheese, and they got all, you know what I love? They have scrambled eggs, and then they have scrambled eggs with like, it looked like sausage in there too. And then, or maybe it was hamburger, and then like all these things. So you got a vegetarian option, then you have like an option with meat. So I appreciated that as well. They have some grapes. They have some cinnamon rolls. Now, they didn't have a glaze there. Like, I think the glaze was more, it looked like more of a syrup. I really like my cinnamon rolls with like that glaze on it, like the creamy white glaze. I really appreciate that. But they didn't have that. I mean, I still ate it, and it was okay. I just would have preferred to have that frosting on there. And so it was pretty good. We had a pretty big crowd. They have like a room off and you walk in and it's like on the left hand side, and of course make reservations if you're going to have a big group, but it's big group friendly. Like our big group was there at 10 a.m. and then, you know, they had another group coming in like closer to noon. So we kind of were like, it was a little bit of like, you know, we crossed a little bit, but our server was amazing. Great service, all of it. So it's one of those places I definitely would recommend. I don't have it on my Aunt Lainey's Kitchen because I was thinking about it. I'm like, I'm not always going to be able to write everything up. And so that one, I'm like, I'm not going to write that up, but I am going to tell you that definitely a place to go. And it is a chain restaurant, but also I went there a couple of weeks ago for like we were all going out. And so I had a burger and fry there. And it actually was pretty good. You know, I got like a bacon cheeseburger and fries. I kept it simple because when I try a new place like that, my first instinct is to not get fancy. Okay. It's like, if you're a brewery, a food and brewery place, I got to try your burger to see what you're doing. I'm not going to try a chicken sandwich. I got to see what your burger is about. If your burger's decent, then okay, well, I'll come back and order something else. So, you know, and I watched other people that had like different things that they ordered and they all looked pretty good and they said it was pretty good. But, you know, for me, that's my thing. Now, I also went to a couple other places, but I'm going to wait on those and I'll put them because I'm still kind of writing those up. I'll put those in the next kind of review episode that I do. So finally, my final review is Elixir espresso. Okay, so like the Elixir has this espresso roast spritzer. Now you're like, Elixir, where's that at? That is in it's like the soda fountain in the basement of the Museum of Kansas City, which if you follow me on Quaint Cozy KC, I just actually did a live on that, and I'm actually going to upload that podcast today where I talk about just the museum part. And this museum is such a vibe. I'm saying if I were out with like, you know, on a date or whatever, that is a nice afternoon date if you've got to deal with like babysitters and stuff like that. So sometimes it's hard as a professional auntie. I know sometimes it's hard for people to kind of get babysitting at like on Saturday nights, but Saturday during the day is a lot easier. And so this is a great place. Like you go in at 11, look around the museum, and then head on down to Elixir Cafe because they do have food there. It's kind of like, you know, food that is like from local Dixon Myers, a happy birthday. What? I was like, I don't know who Dixon is. Okay, well, happy birthday to your brother. And so, anyways, what I was going to say is, so so go and look at all those things. There's a billiards room there as well. A nice place. I think they have a chessboard in there. Just a nice place to vibe. So from 11 a.m. to like 3 p.m., a nice little date, or 2 p.m., a nice little date, because then you can, you know, go downstairs, like check out Elixir and then go explore. So they had like a birthday party there, and there was like, there was like complimentary ice cream. So I got like, they gave me birthday cake ice cream, which was actually pretty good. And then, so I tried something, the espresso rose spritzer. Now, when I said it, the person there working the counter work, she was like, okay, this one is a little, you know, are you sure you want to try this? It's kind of something that the first taste is like not great, but then, and when she said not great, she's like, it's a little hard to digest for some people, but then once you keep drinking it, it's good. And I'm like, okay. And because it had such a strong kick to it, and it did, I took one sip, I was like, oh, this is strong. Like my eyes kind of shot up open. This is strong, right? Like, but it woke up my taste buds, definitely. But then the second sip, like she predicted, it revealed like the floral essence of the rose water. And so like every time, like I felt like, okay, I can kind of taste the orange peel. I can kind of taste the simple syrup. So I definitely, and I think it paired well with the birthday cake ice cream I was served. So this is the kind of thing. I wouldn't start my day off with this espresso. It's something that you have for dessert. It's like to me, a dessert accompaniment versus something like you're like, oh, hey, I'm going to have the salad and drink on this espresso late. No, I would not. That's not my recommendation. This is definitely something for when you get like ice cream or sorbet or something like that, because it's going to add to, it. So, just the flavor. I wouldn't do this with like regular kind of entree or even salad food. This is for dessert. And I would say like not a cake either. Well, maybe like a yellow cake, but not a chocolate cake. Something like a yellow cake or vanilla cake, you could probably do it, but chocolate it might be too much, right? And so that's kind of something that I would definitely think about. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. This is like my review show. Generally what I do is when I do my shows, I will talk about a topic and I'll talk about food memories and just, I really appreciate your support. I did my first live yesterday where on TikTok on Aunt Lane's Kitchen account where I had a basic simple like muffin mix where you add milk. And people who have been following me know that my platform is about like whatever food you have in your house, what you have access to. That's really what I'm trying to kind of, encourage people to cook. And I know it's hard. And that whole adage about we got food at home. And I'm like, yeah, but we also have like DoorDash and places where I can order food as well. But I still, I've been in the past, couple months, I've been really trying to stick more to like, I'll go out to eat for a purpose, but I'm not just doing it just because it's Sunday. It's like, I got food in the house. I am not going to be out in these streets, ordering up stuff and whatever. So, I made the muffins and it was funny because at first I was like, cause I used a third cup. Well, it was more like I had to use a little bit more. It was more like a half a cup because it just wasn't enough. It was too dry. It was going to be too dry, which is that third cup. But I think you could also add water because back in the day, they used to say just to add water. You can add water now. It doesn't have the same robust taste when you add water, but if I would do that and put like a little bit of, if I didn't have any milk, I would do the muffins and then just put maybe a little dollop of whipped cream or a little dollop of cream on top. And it totally changes. Or even like if you got some jam or jelly or something like that, put that on top, like have them like when they're hot, heat them up in the microwave for like 30 seconds when they're hot and put like a little bit of that on there, like, the jelly or the whipped cream or whatever you have like that. And it will change your life. It actually is pretty good. But to go back to mine, so I was a little self-conscious because, on TikTok, on social media, all these things come out looking perfect. And mine looked like, hey, look, this is some muffins I made y'all. And, and I also was like, oh man, I didn't have my chocolate chips in the pantry because, as I said yesterday in my live, I got kind of snacky during the snowstorm a few weeks ago. And I ate like all my pantry stuff. I ate my chocolate chips. There's a couple other, my marshmallows are gone. Like I usually keep some in the pantry for hot chocolate or just adding. I was like, oh my gosh, they're not in the pantry. But I'm like, no, that's okay. That's real life, right? And so I was like, oh my gosh, like if you go and you look at my video of it, I was like very self-conscious about, gosh, they don't look picture perfect, but I'm like, it's real life though. And things are not always going to look picture perfect as long as it's edible. And when edible as in you're not going to get poisoned and then it tastes good. That's important as well. Then that's all I really care about. So sometimes you're going to see stuff on my TikTok page. You'll be like, well, I mean, it's looking realistic. Okay. So I'm your auntie, but I mean, I am your extra auntie, but I'm also the auntie that's going to keep it very real with you because a lot of things are going on right now and food prices are going up. And so I just want to support people and be like, hey, some things on social media are one thing, but real life is still valid, still valuable. And I'm going to eat those muffins for breakfast this week. I'm going to, have a little breakfast treat because they're smaller. And that's kind of like what my plans are. Now I have like I call them my bar. So I've got kind of like a meatloaf pan and I could have like, done like 3 bars of those, but I'm like, no, I don't really want to like have to heavy duty wash out a cupcake pan. And I'd rather do liners. And then maybe I have to like, wash out the top and all that stuff, but I don't have to go in and like really scrub anything out. So that's kind of like why I made that decision. So you guys can find me on AuntLanie'sKitchen.com. You can find me on TikTok under Aunt Lanie's Kitchen, Instagram, Aunt Lanie's Kitchen. That's still developing. I'm on Facebook on Aunt Lanie's Kitchen. So please, and then I'm starting a YouTube and I'll start putting my podcasts on there, my video podcasts on there. YouTube changed it and probably a while back because it's, but they changed it so you can't just put like, your audio has to be formatted a certain way to get it on there. And I was like, that's a lot of converters. And I was like, or I can just, do it live. And that way I can have more content on TikTok as well. So I just kind of, did 2 birds with 1 stone. And then one more thing before I actually leave for real. For my TikTok people that follow me on TikTok, I am going to start doing more. I'm going to do once a week or once every other week, depending on my schedule, lives. But I'm also going to be doing like short TikToks. And I'm going to ask you questions like, is there something you want to like learn about? Like, are you having to do a lot of canned soups? What, like, how can you make those? Adds a little zhuzh to them. And you know, so it doesn't feel like you're eating gruel or something like that. Cause like I said, being on a budget's great, but you don't want to be depressed on that budget because you don't know how to properly season or prepare your budget foods. Okay. On that note, thank you so much for joining me. Take care, everyone. Have a great week.